I thought I was saving a life, but I never expected what happened next. I could hear them. I could feel them. And then, I heard the bushes rustle behind me. The air felt heavy. My heart was pounding so loud I thought they could hear it. I didn't dare move. And then, I saw it. A shadow. A presence so massive, so powerful I could feel its eyes on me before I even turned around. This wasn't just an animal. This was something ancient, something that ruled this jungle long before I ever set foot here. I had stepped into their world, and now, I wasn't sure if I would make it out. Let me start from the beginning. The jungle was alive with sound. Birds called from the canopy, their songs weaving through the rustling of leaves as a warm breeze passed through the trees. The air was thick, damp with the scent of earth and rain. Sunlight filtered through the dense foliage, painting golden patches on the forest floor. Every step I took was careful, deliberate. Out here, you never knew what was watching. I wasn't here by accident. This place had drawn me in for as long as I could remember. The vast, untamed wilderness, where nature ruled without interference. I had read about it, watched documentaries, dreamed of standing where few had dared. And now, I was here. But nothing could have prepared me for what was coming. I had been hiking for hours, camera in hand, documenting the beauty around me. The towering trees, their roots snaking across the ground like ancient veins. The distant sound of running water, hinting at a hidden river. The occasional rustle of something unseen, reminding me that I was not alone. I was searching, though I didn't know exactly for what. Perhaps a glimpse of something rare, something most people would never witness in their lifetime. Then, the forest shifted. A silence fell, subtle but undeniable. The birds stopped singing. The insects, usually a constant hum in the background, went quiet. It was the kind of silence that made your skin crawl, the kind that told you something was near. I froze, listening, waiting. And then, I heard it. A sound so small, so fragile, it didn't belong in a place like this. A whimper, a cry, faint, but unmistakable. My breath caught in my throat as I turned toward the sound. Something was out there, something in trouble, and I knew I had to find it. I moved carefully, following the sound, my heart pounding in my chest. The jungle felt different now, less like a place of wonder and more like a maze of shadows and unseen eyes. The cry came again, weak and desperate, sending a shiver down my spine. Something was suffering, something small. Pushing past thick vines, I stepped into a small clearing, and that's when I saw it. A tiny bundle of dark fur curled against the roots of a massive tree. Its breathing was shallow, its body trembling. A baby gorilla. For a moment, I just stood there, frozen. My mind raced. Where was its mother? Its troop? Gorillas don't just wander off, especially not babies. Had it been abandoned? Attacked? The idea sent a wave of unease through me. If something had driven this little one away, that danger could still be nearby. I crouched slowly, trying not to startle it. Its eyes flickered open, big, round, full of fear and confusion. It tried to lift its tiny arms but was too weak. My chest tightened. It needed help. But stepping in was risky. If its family was still around, they wouldn't take kindly to a stranger touching one of their own. I glanced around, scanning the thick jungle. No movement, no sound, just silence pressing in from all sides. I had to make a decision. If I left it here, it might not survive. If I took it, I risked being seen as a threat by its troop. I swallowed hard, then reached out, my hands trembling. The baby gorilla flinched but didn't resist as I gently lifted it into my arms. Its tiny fingers curled weakly around mine. I could feel its rapid heartbeat against my skin. It was terrified, and so was I. I had no idea what I had just done, or what was about to happen next. The baby gorilla clung to me, its tiny body warm against my chest. I could feel its heartbeat, fast and unsteady, matching my own. It was so small, so fragile. I held it carefully, afraid that even the slightest movement might hurt it. Its fur was soft, damp with sweat and dirt, and as I cradled it, I felt a shift, something deep inside me, something I couldn't explain. At first, it barely moved. Its breathing was shallow, its eyes dull, as if the world around it had become too much to bear. But then, slowly, it stirred. It blinked up at me, confused, vulnerable. I reached into my pack, pulling out a small bottle of water. Carefully, I let a few drops touch its lips. At first, nothing. Then a small movement, a flick of its tongue, the tiniest sign of life. Encouraged, I tried again, letting it drink little by little. The water seemed to revive it, just enough to give it strength. A few minutes later, it shifted in my arms, adjusting its weight. It wasn't just surviving now. It was responding, trusting me. The bond formed quicker than I expected. As I wiped dirt from its face, it reached for my hand, its tiny fingers curling around mine. A soft sound escaped its throat. Not quite a cry, not quite a sigh, more like a whisper of relief. And then, something unexpected happened. The baby lifted a shaky hand and touched my face, its fingers tracing my skin, as if trying to understand me. I froze, overwhelmed by the moment. This little creature, lost and alone, had decided I was safe. But deep down, I knew the truth. I wasn't its mother. I wasn't even supposed to be here. And no matter how much it trusted me now, its real family was still out there, somewhere in the jungle. And if they found me with one of their own, I had no idea how they would react. A sudden crack of branches echoed through the jungle. My entire body tensed. The baby gorilla flinched in my arms, its tiny fingers gripping my shirt tighter. The air around me changed, thicker, heavier, charged with something I couldn't see but could feel deep in my bones. I wasn't alone anymore. Another sound, this time closer. A deep, guttural grunt, low and unmistakable. My breath caught in my throat. I turned my head slowly, my pulse hammering in my ears. And then, through the dense foliage, I saw them. Massive shadows moved between the trees. First one, then another, then more. Shapes blending with the jungle, but their presence undeniable. They were watching me, studying me, deciding. Then a figure stepped forward, a towering silverback, its chest broad, its dark fur glistening in the dappled sunlight. Its eyes locked onto mine, deep, golden, unreadable. It didn't charge, it didn't roar, it just stared. I could feel the power radiating from it, the sheer force of an animal that could break me in an instant if it chose to. Every muscle in my body screamed at me to run, but I knew better. Running wasn't an option. Not now. The baby gorilla whimpered softly, burying its face against me. And that's when I saw it, the shift in the silverback's gaze, a flicker of recognition, of understanding. The rest of the troop emerged from the shadows, their dark forms surrounding me. Mothers, juveniles, all watching in silence. The tension was suffocating. My grip on the baby tightened. I had no idea what they were going to do. And then, the silverback took a step forward. Closer. Too close. My breath hitched. This was it. Whatever was about to happen, there was no turning back now. The silverback stood just feet away, its massive frame towering over me. I could see every detail, the deep lines in its face, the powerful muscles beneath its thick fur, the slow rise and fall of its chest. It wasn't just looking at me, it was reading me. My body was frozen, but my mind was racing. What was it thinking? Did it see me as a threat? An intruder? My arms stiffened around the baby, unsure of what to do. Then, as if sensing my hesitation, the tiny gorilla stirred. It lifted its head, letting out a weak cry. The reaction was instant. A female gorilla broke from the group, moving toward us with urgency. Her eyes were locked on the baby, her every step filled with something raw, something deeper than instinct. It was her, the mother, She let out a soft, rumbling sound, a call I didn't understand but felt in my core. The baby whimpered again, shifting in my arms. I knew what I had to do. Slowly, carefully, I knelt down, my heart pounding as I placed the little one on the jungle floor. For a moment, nothing happened. The mother hesitated, her dark eyes flicking between me and her baby. Then, she moved. Not rushed, not aggressive, just deliberate. She scooped the baby up into her arms, holding it close, pressing her face against its tiny body. A deep sigh, almost like relief, escaped her. I should have felt safe now. I should have felt like I had done the right thing. But the silverback was still there, still watching me. His gaze was heavy, impossible to read. Then, he did something I never expected. He grunted softly, a low, resonating sound. Not a threat, not a warning, something else. It wasn't anger I saw in his eyes. It wasn't fear. It was something closer to understanding. Respect. I exhaled, my body finally releasing the tension that had held me captive. I had walked into their world, taken one of their own, and yet, they had spared me. The troop slowly began to move, fading back into the jungle, the mother still cradling her baby. And just like that, they were gone. The jungle returned to its rhythm, the sounds of life creeping back in as if nothing had happened. But I knew better. Something had happened. Something I would never forget. I stood there for a long time, my body still, my mind struggling to process what had just happened. The jungle felt different now, as if I had just crossed an invisible threshold, stepped into a world I was never meant to be a part of. The troop was gone, the baby safe in its mother's arms, but the moment still lingered in the air, heavy, unshakable. I had always known that animals were intelligent, that they felt things deeply. But this was something else. The way the silverback had looked at me, the way he had decided to let me go, it wasn't just instinct. It wasn't just survival. It was understanding. In that moment, we weren't enemies. We weren't even different. We were just two beings, standing in the same jungle, recognizing something unspoken in each other. I let out a shaky breath, finally allowing myself to move. My legs felt weak, my hands trembling as I wiped sweat from my face. I had been ready for the worst, prepared for a fight I wouldn't have won. But instead, I had been given something else. A story, a lesson, a moment that would stay with me forever. As I turned to leave, I glanced back one last time, half expecting to see them watching from the shadows. But the jungle had already swallowed them whole. They had returned to their world. And now, it was time for me to return to mine. Walking away, I felt different, humbled, changed. The jungle had tested me, challenged me, and in the end, it had let me go. Not because I had overpowered it, not because I had conquered it, but because I had respected it. And maybe, just maybe, it had respected me back. Some moments in life can't be explained. They can't be captured in words or pictures. They can only be felt, lived, remembered. This was one of them. And as I stepped out of the trees and back into the world I knew, I carried that moment with me. A reminder of how small we really are, and how powerful the wild will always be.